What's up, everybody? Welcome into this Sunday Divisional Round recap edition of Pushing the Pile. Mike Renner, JP Acosta. JP, we lamented our wild card exits for our beloved Packers and Jaguars, respectively, here last week. But the next best thing happened outside of our teams winning the Super Bowl, which is that no division rival of ours will win the Super Bowl after both took tough L's this week.
If our teams can't win it, nobody can. We're bringing everybody down with us.
Every year, so once Packers are eliminated, I try to find the team that's like, who do I not want to succeed the least? Like, who am I the least a hater of? Is kind of how I pick who I want to win. Who do I least hate, and who's going to bring me the least amount of negative energy over the course of the offseason? That's basically who I end up rooting for when it's all said and done.
I think for me, it's more of a, all right, which game do I think would be the coolest? Once my team leaves the playoffs and once like the hater bowl is gone, I'm just choosing which game I think would be the coolest.
See, for me now, it's easily the Broncos. Jared Stidham, like when the Eagles had Nick Foles, I was the biggest Eagles fan that year. I was like, let's get craziness, right? I want something nuts to happen. I want Jared Stidham to go off in the AFC Championship, because we'll get to that later. But obviously, he is your starter with Bo Nix out with a broken ankle. Well, let's get to the Sunday Night Football game that we just witnessed. A wild one, probably one of the crazier all-time plays in playoff history occurred in this game. The Cole Kmet touchdown with less than 30 seconds left in the fourth quarter. But ultimately, the Rams win on a walk-off field goal in overtime, 20-17.
This was one of the most like rambunctious 20-17 games of all time. Like, it wouldn't necessarily, like, the score wouldn't suggest it, but there were so many crucial plays that really came down to the wire, really deciding the outcome of this game. You know, of course, everybody's going to look at the Caleb Williams touchdown pass to Cole Kmet, but you even go to the drive before that where it's 3rd and goal, 4th and goal. The Bears had the chance to go and take the lead or tie the game there. And the 3rd and goal, it's a shotgun run to DeAndre Swift, and gun runs have not been working for the Bears in this game. DeAndre Swift takes off to the corner, tries to jump over Darius Williams, and then Quentin Lake like spears him on the goal line. And then the next play is the 4th and goal. Omar Speights breaks up the pass. You think about how well the defense for Chicago played until the very end, and then just some really, really high leverage moments and high leverage plays by both quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think the big number in this one, and what a lot of people are going to be talking about, is 3, and that's the amount of failed 4th down conversions that the Chicago Bears had in this game while in Rams territory. So while in field goal range, they basically passed up 3 opportunities at a field goal that they then missed. Now you have to admit that they had 2 of those on their 5 4th down attempts in Rams scoring range that they did convert to touchdowns, 2 scores there. But ultimately, if they would have kicked on all 5, that's 15 points. 2 touchdowns is 14 points. They would have been the winner had all 5 of those cashed as field goals.
To be fair to the Bears, I believe 2 of their 3 touchdowns in this game came on 4th down.
Yes.
Like, it's not like these are just like ultra bad decisions. And given the state of the Bears defense and who you are playing against, you always want to give your offense the shot with the ball. And honestly, they're not even like bad plays when you go and watch them. The first 4th down of the game where Caleb Williams overthrows Colston Loveland, ends up in a pick. That's just a bad overthrow on a play where Loveland was open. He just missed him high. We talked about the 4th and goal where they're trying. It's a really cool design where you get DeAndre Swift going out in motion. You get 4 receivers to one side to try and open that window for that little trail route or trail concept. It's a great play design and it's right there, but defense gets paid too. And then ultimately, you know, like, that's really the biggest thing. Like, it was great design. It was great ideas on 4th down, but sometimes like that's the reason defense gets paid.
And also, it's not as if so the conditions were poor for offense in this game. They're also poor for kicking. It's not as if you can just say, hey, all 5 of those, just because we're in field goal range, that they're going to go in. It was snowing, right? Like, that is not there's no chip shots when the weather is what the weather was in Chicago. So I don't blame Ben Johnson whatsoever for being aggressive. That's his MO. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. I think if you're going to criticize them for that, you also have to give them a ton of credit for the fact that they're even here in the first place. So I do not fault them whatsoever. I just don't think they thought they were going to hold the Rams to the lowest passing success rate they had all season, right? Like 36% success rate from this Rams offense. So far and away, their worst offensive output from a passing perspective. Matt Stafford goes 20 of 42, 258 yards. Like they shut down this Rams passing attack for the better portion of this game. I don't think they thought that was what was going to happen. I'll just say that because no one had done it yet this year.
Oh, not at all. And I think part of it was how great of a game plan by Dennis Allen, the Bears defensive coordinator, and the ability to pressure Matthew Stafford without losing their coverage shells. They brought a lot of nickel blitzes. They tried to rotate their coverages. They tried to roll coverage to remain in too high while continuing to get pressure. And I thought for the most part, they really did a good job. I think of the there are a couple of plays where you bring Kyler Gordon off the edge or Jaquan Brisker off the edge, and you basically trap the outbreaking route to Puka Nacua, and there's nothing open. So I think they did a really good job. It's just in the highest leverage moments when they did bring the blitz and played man behind it. They threw it to Puka Nacua on 3rd and 7. That was the one time that they blitzed and played man, and then they beat them. And that's the one thing you can't do against the Rams. You know, you really can't blitz Matthew Stafford as often as you want to, because despite his inability to really move, he's seen every blitz in the NFL. So that's why playing all those coverages behind it is a really smart thing to do. But on the other side, I do think this was a pretty bad, a poorly called game by Sean McVay. I mean, it felt like the run-pass splits were far too skewed in early goings of the game. I believe at one point they had 34 dropbacks to 11 runs, despite the run game working. And it wasn't like they were barely eking out runs. They had a 45% success rate on the ground in this game and were mashing the Bears in duo. But then you run a jet sweep to Jordan Whittington that goes nowhere, and you have two straight incompletions that go nowhere. I just thought this was a real uneven game for Sean McVay that ultimately you still get a win, but it was a tough game for the play caller.
Yeah, to me, those are running conditions. When the field is slippery, when the D-line can't have your footing, when you're running hard sideline to sideline and it's hard for you to react to a runner, that's when the offense has an advantage in the running game. And like you said, they really never leaned into that seemingly after the first drive. I thought the first drive, they mixed in really well. They moved the ball right down the field. They scored. I was like, okay, here we go. Popcorn ready. It's going to be a high-scoring game. That kind of ended real quick after that. But the Rams, you almost feel like you got away with it. I mean, you have to feel like that because this was a D performance from this offense. Again, maybe the worst performance we've seen from this Rams offense all season. And you still got out of there with the win. But on the flip side for the Bears, it's this was all icing on the cake. Last week, I don't want to say it was their Super Bowl, but this was not supposed to happen this year. It felt like the year before the year. I was actually talking to a guy who was a Bears fan at a bar out here in Covington yesterday, and he agreed. He's like, I'm just happy as heck to be here. He's like, I thought next year was going to be the year we figured it out. And for this year to go the way it did, to be the 2 seeds, for Caleb to look as good as he does, and for the rookie playmakers you have, Colson Loveland, to be as good as he is. I mean, Luther Burden looks like a superstar every time they get him the football. You just have too many mouths to feed in that offense right now. I think if you're a Bears fan, it's like, we said about some teams, you can't say you're going to be back here, but it feels like with this Bears team and this young core, it's like you'll be back in the mix.
I'm still not going to say the biggest thing you can the worst thing you tell yourself as a fan is that you'll be back next year, because
maybe not next year. That they'll have long-term prosperity with this group is a better way to say.
Yes, I agree with that, but I do think there is some level of you can't. Being ahead of schedule is a great thing, especially for the Bears, but that doesn't mean you can just run back the same team and expect the same results, which I don't think they're going to do. They have massive holes on the defense side of the ball. They have a major DJ Moore problem, which I don't think DJ Moore is going to be on the team next year, but it's just going to be a really fascinating offseason for the Bears.
So DJ Moore's contract is not favorable to cut, though. They would have to post-June 1 him to get any cap relief or trade him. With $23 million of base salary next year, I'm not sure a lot of people are signing up, being like, let me go get a DJ Moore for $23 million, given what he has. But the desperation around the NFL, maybe someone gives you a day 3 pick for DJ Moore at this point in time. But I think you have to go into next season with Luther Burden as your 1 or 2. I mean, he looks just so much more dynamic at this point in time than Moore does.
Especially given the fact that on the biggest play of the season, or with the game potentially like on the line, DJ Moore stopped running his route. Like the interception to Cam Curl, like DJ Moore stopped running. And that's been a constant theme for DJ Moore this season. You can point to a lot of times where DJ Moore just stops running the route, or like he just gives up on the route. And that's a problem for someone making $23 million on your team. So I don't think he's going to be on the team very much longer. But I do think the core of Loveland, Caleb Williams, Luther Burden. I do think Roma Dunze had a couple drop passes. Loveland had a couple drop passes.
Yeah, Loveland not a best game.
But that young core is something to be excited about.
Very much so. All right, we're going to take a quick break. After that, we're going to get to Texans, Patriots, right after this.
You can't count on accurate expiration dates.
No, that is a rookie mistake.
Or the kindness of strangers. But thanks to CBS Sports, you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
Patriots win 28-16 to advance to the AFC Championship game, where they'll face the Denver Broncos. The big number from this one, what's 418th? That is where CJ Stroud's playoff EPA per dropback ranks out of 427 quarterbacks since 2007. He had 5 interceptions and 5 fumbles. First player to ever do both in the playoffs. It was just horrendous. It was one of the worst playoff performances I can remember from a guy who's not just sneaking in here. This is the franchise quarterback of the Houston Texans, and that was a dud.
You could tell in this game that CJ Stroud had sort of lost confidence. And you could tell that he was rattled. And I think this game is a great example, and this season for CJ Stroud is a great example of why surrounding your quarterback with competence at offense, especially along the offensive line, that play caller, is the biggest thing you can do to help a young quarterback's development. I think Troy Aikman even said it on the broadcast. Like, we don't know why CJ Stroud has regressed so poorly this year, but they need to figure it out. And it's sort of like, yeah, we do know why he's regressed. Like CJ Stroud, even coming out of Ohio State, he was a pristine pocket passer who had a couple of blips on the radar when it came to passing under pressure. I think that still popped up during his rookie year. But what happened with his rookie year was he was so efficient from clean pockets and throwing downfield without turning the ball over. That was really cool to see. And you could see some of the confidence outside of structure. But when the offensive line got poor and when everything started to fall apart around him, you could tell that the minor issues started becoming major flaws. And you can see a quarterback that lost confidence in himself. You combine that with the concussion that knocked him out for a long time, and you get what happened today. I mean, there were plays where Stroud has the ability to run and he just doesn't, and he throws a pick. I think the worst interception he threw, I think, might have been the first one, where I think it's an out and up to Schultz, and it's open, but I think CJ Stroud just throws this way too far out. Like, there's no chance Schultz is even getting to it, and he throws a pick. The second Carlton Davis interception, where I think it's Xavier Hutchinson, and he throws it behind him, like Leighton behind him. That's a really tough one. But I think this game sort of was all of the Texans' offensive issues compounding into one catastrophic moment.
Yeah, and his first 2 years in the league, he had Laramie Tunsil. As much as, the offensive line was still bad last year, when you have that blindside protection, you basically know where it's coming from. You can see the pressure more often than not. You don't have that sitting in the back of your mind. And for his career now, under 50 completion percent, under pressure, under 6 yards per attempt under pressure. That is just not a guy who can operate behind a bad offensive line. You know, those numbers, if you are facing pressure then at 37, 38%, near the top of the league, which he was this year for the Texans, that's going to tank a lot of games, especially when you face good pass rushes, when you're under pressure a lot. And so, yeah, I do think number one thing you have to do if you're the Houston Texans, it's just address the offensive line. They've thrown so many resources at it, unfortunately, and it's not stuck, but I don't think you can stop. You really have to do whatever it takes because you wasted an all-time great defensive performance. The Houston Texans defense was so good in the first 2 games of the playoffs, just unbelievably good, and it didn't matter.
It's so telling that losing Trent Brown, who is, I would say, like, maybe he is like one of the 32 best right tackles in the NFL.
Fair.
Maybe. Like, I think that's fair. Losing Trent Brown completely tanked the run game. They could not run the ball at all in this game. And so what worked in the Steelers game, which was running the ball with extra offensive linemen on the field and then hitting in-breakers off play action. We talked about that in the lead up. Throwing those in-breakers off play action, that doesn't work when the run game isn't working. So now you're trying to get CJ Stroud as a pocket passer to win the game. But when your interior offensive line is continuing to get crushed by Milton Williams and Christian Barmore, who completely dominated this game, you get a lot of muddy pockets. And in one of the few times they tried to do bootlegs in this game, the left tackle trips the slide route. Kayvon Chaisson is still unblocked. CJ Stroud doesn't eat the play, and it's a pick six. Like, that's the kind of like comedy of errors that the Texans have been avoiding since Stroud came back from injury, but you can only avoid it so long against like actual NFL defenses.
Yeah. The Patriots offense in this game had only 248 yards, only 13 first downs, and they had 3 turnovers. They are the first team since 1987 to win a playoff game with under 250 yards, with 13 first downs or fewer, and with 3+ turnovers. The average mark of teams that have hit those, the average loss was 21.3 points per game. This is courtesy of Carson Breber. That's insane. The fact that they won that game by 12 when their offense, the Texans held this offense to one of its worst performances of the season, and it was still a 12-point loss. That just shows you how anemic this Texans offense was in this game.
Would it surprise you to tell me, or would it surprise you if I told you that the Texans and Patriots had the same success rate in this game?
This was ugly.
and it felt like that. It felt like outside of the couple of explosives that Patriots were able to hit, you get the Kayshon Boutte touchdown, which is incredible moment for Boutte, who's really sort of revived his career with Drake May. But you get that. You get the couple of slant flat plays where they manipulate Jalen Petre out of the slant window and they throw it late, and you get the Diggs touchdown. Outside of those plays, the Texans really sort of took it to them. And I thought that this was a game that really sort of highlighted some of the flaws of this Patriots offense right now. I thought this was a really, really rough game for Will Campbell, as it would be for most tackles going up against Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter. The strip sack, one of the strip sacks where Will Anderson Jr. is just shot out of a cannon, and Will Campbell doesn't even get like a hand on him. What else can you do? Because not many like offensive linemen are actually going to block him there. But I think it's sort of it's tough for Will Campbell because his entire thing is he has to beat guys to the spot as a tackle, but that also allows himself to get bull rushed. And in this game, he got bull rushed a lot, so he didn't get to the point as quickly enough. And so Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. kept beating him outside. And it's really tough. So Drake May fumbled a lot in this game. He has had issues with fumbles this season. But, this was about as good as you could get a performance from the Texans defense, and it still ended up not mattering.
Drake May 6 fumbles now in the postseason. He has a lot of thanking to do to CJ Stroud and Justin Herbert because he's skating by here. He has not lit the world on fire. Matt Stafford hasn't either. You don't decide the MVP based off the postseason, but like they have not looked like an MVP-led offense the first two games. And they may not this upcoming week either. Like their schedule of defenses in the playoffs, maybe their schedule of offense has been very easy that they face, but their schedule of defenses with the Chargers, now this, and then the Denver Broncos, very difficult. All right, we're going to take a quick break. After that, going to get to the games we saw Saturday and then preview the championship games a little bit later on.
This isn't just combat. It's cinema.
Ready or not, here I come. Let's go! Are you not entertained?
The new home of UFC, Paramount Plus.
All right, let's do 49ers Seahawks, albeit 41-6. Seahawks win. This game was over very shortly. It started with a kickoff return touchdown, and the Seahawks never looked back. They had a 55% offensive success rate in this one. That's my big number for this game, compared to only 33% for the 49ers. That was one of the top 15 biggest discrepancies all season long.
If you want to know what the vibes are for the Seahawks right now are, my girlfriend, who is still, she enjoys football, not really knows ball yet. We're getting there. She said the Seahawks have hella aura, which is exactly how the vibes are right now in Seattle. From the moment the opening kickoff happened, this game was over. Like it felt like an avalanche. And it felt like for a team that sort of bent but didn't break all season under the weight of all the injuries, it finally broke. And it's sort of just, it sucks if you're the 49ers, you're a 49ers fan for thinking like what could have been. But if you're the Seahawks, this is I'm not going to say it's like historic caliber defense, but this is one of the best. And I think it is the pinnacle of what a modern defense should be in the NFL. I mean, they had the 49ers in a glove for the entire game.
Yeah, this one on paper, I feel like this is the 49ers on paper. This is what it should have looked like. I mean, the Seahawks are just so much egregiously more talented from top to bottom on this roster right now. But for somehow the 49ers continue to not make it look that way all season long. But when your top target in this game is Jake Tonjes, when your number one wide receiver is Juwan Jennings and then no one else, it's just the 49ers were so underpowered to deal with a defense that, you know, you're not going to beat with one guy. You need to beat with a bevy of options because they can take away any given guy in any given play. They're just too complete. This is kind of what I don't want to say I expected it to look like. I didn't think it'd be 41-6, but I just did not think the underpowered 49ers offense stood a chance in this one.
In the last 3 weeks, the 49ers have put up by EPA per play, they're two of their three worst performances of the Kyle Shanahan, Brock Purdy era. And the only reason the last 2 weeks against the Seahawks are not number one and number two is because Brock Purdy tore his elbow up against the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. So in games that Brock Purdy has started, I'm not even going to say has started through three quarters, those are the two worst performances they've had of the Shanahan Purdy era. If you really want to get crazy here, 3 of the 10 worst performances of the Shanahan Purdy era have come with Mike McDonald as the defensive coordinator, if you include the Ravens game from a couple years back. The way that they're able to stop the run and the ability to stop the run in a light box is the biggest reason why the Seahawks are able to do what they do. Of course, there is a lot of schematic stuff. There's a bunch of cool run stunts and run blitzes they'll get from Eman Worry, from Drake Thomas. But their ability to stop the run up front with Leonard Williams, who was awesome. Byron Murphy had some really incredible plays against the run against the 49ers. And that ability to slow down the run from a light box, they play nickel and dime more than anybody else in the NFL. And they're still successful defending the run out of light boxes because this defensive line kicks ass every single time they're on the field. And once you're able to do that, you make an offense one-dimensional, and they just close the vice grip on the 49ers. And they closed the vice grip on Brock Purdy, who looked like he was seeing 17 Seahawks defenders out there at any point during the game.
If there's any takeaway that I would take away from the final four teams in terms of like long running trends, in terms of team building. Go get you some ass kicking defensive tackles. Look at these final four teams that are left. Look at the Patriots getting Milton Williams. Look at, the Eagles without Milton Williams. Look at the Seahawks. Look at the Rams. Look at the Broncos with Zach Allen and company. Like, go get you guys who can create havoc on the interior. That is what you need in today's NFL. That is going to be able to, like you just said, play the run from light boxes consistently. The more you can do that, the better off you'll be. And ass kicking DTs is the single quickest way to get there.
Exactly. And that's sort of where the 49ers offense has lacked. That's where they needed to improve this season. And I think they took a couple nice swings with Alfred Collins and CJ West, who I think can be solid players. But in this game and in the last game they played against the Seahawks, not having Nick Bosa mattered so much, not because of the pass rush or anything of Nick Bosa. It was setting the edge, because Kenneth Walker in this game had a 57.9% success rate running the football. Like, that just should not happen very often with this offensive line. And they were kicking ass in outside zone. Their edges were getting taken to the woodshed by A.J. Barner and Eric Saubert. And I think that's the biggest issue for the 49ers. They came in without two of their best players and a depleted defensive line, and it showed in their lack of like edge setting against the run. They had to constantly try and spike guys inside. They had to constantly blitz to try and get something on the ground game against those outside zone or against those toss plays. But eventually that dam is going to break because you don't have enough bodies.
And it broke. That was ugly for the 49ers. Tough way to go out. But for the Seattle Seahawks, it's what we all thought was coming. Seahawks, Rams, they were the best two teams in the NFC for the majority of the season, and we get to see them in the championship. Let's go to the AFC, where the Bills lost to the Broncos 33-30 in overtime. The big number from this one, 0-7. That is Josh Allen's career record in overtime games. The most losses without a win in NFL history. Hopefully he'll get one at some point, but 7 right now. 3 of those came in the playoffs. The Bills have now lost 3 straight playoff games, not playoff games, had 3 straight playoff exits by 3 points or fewer. That's never happened in NFL history.
This is probably the worst playoff performance of Josh Allen's career.
Oh my gosh, it was, yeah.
It was the worst. It's okay to say that. The fumble at the end of the first half was just, what are you doing? Like, let's calm down. The interception that he threw to PJ Locke was a play where you sort of like, it's open, and he does a good job of holding Hufanga enough for, I forgot who it was, get behind him, but he kind of puts too much air on the ball and allows PJ Locke to come back in and make a play on the ball. But it's those moments, it's those turnovers that in a 33-30 game, you sort of wish you had those plays back. You really wish you had that fumble back at the end of the first half in a game that you lost by 3, because you could have gone and kicked the field goal there to tie it, and they end up tying the game. But it's tough because the margin for error for Josh Allen in this offense is so thin, despite having an awesome run game, because you are a bad Josh Allen game from being out of the playoffs. You're a fumbleitis Josh Allen game from being out of the playoffs. And it's a tough way to build a team. It's a tough way to build a team on both sides of the ball. We'll get to Bills defense against Broncos offense, but it really is like, it's a tough way for Allen to go out, especially after playing so well against the Jaguars.
Yes, I agree. That was, especially when this felt like, I don't want to say their easiest road, but he'd only lost to Mahomes and Burrow previously in the playoffs. They weren't in this playoff. Like, this should have been his opportunity. I saw this tweet from Football Perspective on X that I had to reference because I thought it was insane to look back on just how good this team has been in the Josh Allen era with not even one Super Bowl appearance to show from it. Over the last 6 years, so of the 2020s, they have the most points scored in the NFL while allowing the fewest points in the NFL. They have the best record in the NFL. Their point differential is 321 points better than every other teams in the NFL over that span. And they have never even been to the Super Bowl. The Bills' curse is unbelievable in the playoffs. This felt like, I don't say the year, but it felt like it was the time that they could get over the hump.
It felt like time to get over the hump, but also this was, and we acknowledged it going into the playoffs, this is the worst Bills team that there has been in a long time. Like in that, like since
your number one receiver was a guy that got cut like week like 16, right? It was Brandon Cooks was your number one.
Yes, like Brandon Cooks is your number one receiver. And this defense punched above their weight for the playoffs because it's not a very deep defense. It's not a very talented defense. I mean, that sort of falls on Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott for continuing to, like they've drafted like 7 different undersized 3-technique defensive tackles and still can't stop the run. And then they continue to draft undersized 3 techniques and Deion Walker as like their ability to stop the run is like, no, like you actually need a run stopper. You still don't have a lot of team speed. And it's just, you keep hammering on these same things that worked in 2020 that don't necessarily work now. And it sort of feels like it might be time for some new ideas in that front office. Maybe, I'm not saying that Sean McDermott is the one to get fired because I don't think that's this year. I think if anything, Sean McDermott gets fired next year. But I do think it's fair to question if Brandon Beane's time in Buffalo has come to an end. But even if you do fire Brandon Beane, you don't want to stick a lame duck head coach with a new GM. So you're kind of stuck unless you clean house. It feels like we're going to keep riding this bicycle for a long time.
I think McDermott's a great coach, man. I think he made something out of nothing with his defense. Like that defense is not talented. That is not a talented defense that he had playing way above their pay grade.
I think he's a good coach too, but I do think that when you keep suffering from the same things, when you have the same problems all the time, it's just a little like maybe there needs to be some new ideas. And again, this is a Brandon Beane thing and not a Sean McDermott thing, but the walls are getting close. The walls are getting close in Buffalo, especially because this team can't get over the hump even without a Mahomes in the playoffs.
I do think if you look back at Brandon Beane's track record of drafting, it's objectively below average compared to the rest of the NFL. There's not a lot to show for his top 100 picks. They have been rank average to below average over the last 6 or so years. So if anyone, that's where I'm starting, especially did you see after the draft last year, and it was circulating now after the loss, him on Buffalo radio saying, what was the exact quote? The exact quote was, bitching about the wide receivers is one of the dumbest arguments I've heard, because he called in, he heard them talking about they didn't address wide receiver in this year's draft. And that's what he said. And then your number one wide receiver in the playoff game is Brandon Cooks. You can't live that down. You can't live that down if you're a GM. You got to just come out and say, my bad.
That, and also them openly wanting Tyleik Williams, and Tyleik Williams saying after the draft he thought the Bills were going to draft him if he fell, and them continuing to have struggles stopping the run. It's just like, man, you're really stuck right now.
Whew. All right. We got to talk about the Broncos for a little bit, because they won this game, but it was about the quickest from a high to a low that I can remember for a franchise, because as soon as the post-game press conference, Sean Payton announces Bo Nix broke his ankle. He's out for the season. And it happened on the JP's playbook play. It happened on one of their go-to staples in like 2-minute late game situations. Quarterback pin and pull to the left. It's one of the weirdest things because it's a broken ankle, but like usually when you see a broken ankle, you know a broken ankle. It looked like he looks at it a few times afterwards on that play. I do think it was that play, but it was not the, Dak Prescott broken ankle. We didn't have to look away afterwards. He played the rest 4 more snaps after that. It knelt down, and but will not be your starter. Jarrett Stidham will be for the AFC Championship game.
It sucks because I thought Bo Nix played really good in this game. And I think Sean Payton also called a very good game, because I think going into this one, you were worried about Nix having to read out pro snap what the Bills were doing and showing a lot of rotations and doing a lot of disguised coverages. But for the most part, until they started sending blitzes at Bo Nix and forcing him to work off schedule, I thought he was carving them. When it came to the post-snap diagnostics, there was a play, the little Jordan Humphrey touchdown, where they have him going back across the formation. I thought was a really good design, a really good job by Nix of putting that ball right where Humphrey needs to. I like that they rolled him out the pocket for it. And there were a couple of plays. There's a couple of seam balls that he rips. The dagger, I think it was overtime. It might have been overtime or the last drive of the fourth quarter. The dagger to Cortland Sutton might have been the sickest throw that Bo Nix has ever made at any level of the sport. It's just one of those, it was an awesome throw. I thought he played really well. And then the immediate, he broke his ankle. And I feel terrible for Broncos fans, because given the way that the Patriots looked today, you're sort of like, man, we really got a chance of going to the Super Bowl. We really have a chance to go do this thing. And now you're playing Jarrett Stidham at quarterback.
Still got a chance. I mean, let's be real. They've won games where Bo Nix and the offense has done diddly poo. So this defense is still a championship caliber defense. They're fully capable of still winning this game. But it does take some wind out the sails, because that fourth quarter, that overtime from Bo Nix was like, okay, we have a guy who he can make the plays when it matters most. It's kind of what he's done all season and in the biggest spots. And you thought, against the New England Patriots, that probably would have been favored in that game, that you are the better team. You're at home. And now it's, hey, we haven't seen this guy in 2 years. Week 18, 2023 is the last time he started a game. That's the only team in the NFL that didn't have his backup play at all this season. So fresh out the gate, we'll see how it goes. But even if it ends here, this Broncos team, I mean, what a season it's been for them.
It has been an incredible season. I think Sean Payton has done an awesome job with this offense. I do want to give a lot of credit to the Broncos offensive line and Zach Strief, their offensive line coach. They have done such a good job in pass protection this season. I don't think it gets a lot of credit how well they've done in pass protection this season and how they've adjusted their pass protection plans. I think the Broncos are right up there with some of the best pass protection plans we'll see in the NFL this year. And, they're going to have to be on their A game with Jarrett Stidham in the game. I am very, very curious if they're actually able to run the football, because they still couldn't. They still couldn't run the football very well and very effectively, which is why I thought this game by Nix was so impressive, was because sort of what I wrote for the biggest reason why the Broncos would not win the Super Bowl would be because the run game puts too much on Bo Nix's shoulders. And in that game, he responded really well to not having a run game. So now without Nix, how are you going to manufacture any success with Jarrett Stidham as your quarterback?
We'll get to that in the next block. But let's end with this. The PIs. Good calls, bad calls, and the interception. Good call, bad call, your takes.
All right. So the first pass interference on Taron Johnson, that was a little ticky-tack.
Bad call. I agree. That was bad. That one was the one that I'm like, pick that up.
The Tre'Davious White one was 100% pass interference. That is absolutely pass interference. It sucks that it's a pass interference in the most important part of the game and in overtime, but that's pass interference. That is textbook pass interference. It was also an interception. I'm sorry. That was an interception. And if we look at catch rules, he didn't fully have possession when he hit the ground. It would be different if he fully had possession of the ball when he hit the ground. But when you watch the play, Jaquan McMillan is making a play on the ball as he hits the ground. He doesn't fully have possession when he hits the ground. That's what survive the catch and survive the ground means. He doesn't survive the ground. That's an interception. And I think we're going to point a lot to, and I said Bills fans are probably going to throw their TV through the window when they saw the Devontae Adams catch remain a catch and not an interception. But that was a completely different play that was ruled correctly. So they were both those catches were both ruled correctly. I think the PI on Taron Johnson was a bad call. The Tre'Davious White DPI was the correct call. And even if it wasn't the correct call, Joey Bosa roughed the passer. They would have moved 15 yards anyways.
There's a crucial concept here that is called going to the ground in the process of the catch. If you do not establish as a runner in the field, which Devontae Adams lands with 2 feet upright, and then he starts falling, right? Whereas that didn't happen. That's like if you are going to the ground, you have to survive the ground. If you catch it on 2 feet and then you get hit, you don't have to survive the ground. That's the big difference here. And so obviously did not survive the ground. No. All right, let's take a quick break. After that, going to get to a preview of the championship games.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
All right, let's start with Patriots Broncos. The line opened up 5.5 in favor of the Patriots. 40.5 is the over-under. Not only is Jarrett Stidham starting, CBS colleague, pod member, Ben DiNucci gets the call-up. He is now a member of your Denver Broncos. Could be having a ring on the pod here this offseason.
Does this mean that we are one phone call away from Mike potentially playing DB for the Packers? I think that could be something that happens. It
would have to be for the Broncos. They're the ones who got Riley Moss. They're the only ones who could swing it.
Look, we can make it happen. We can definitely get this to happen. If anybody needs a pass rusher, I'm available. We're on the pod. Just give me a phone call.
We're talking about DTs that can create havoc. Let's get JP in there.
Let's do it. Let's make it happen. This is a Jarrett Stidham revenge game too. Yes. Which is a very understated point of all of this is the Jarrett Stidham revenge game. And I think he was one of the only quarterbacks to actually take snaps after Tom Brady. So it's going to be a very, very funny game. But watch in this game for
do you remember when Pats fans were convincing themselves? They're like, yeah, Stidham's the guy. Like all that one off.
I remember the Jarrett Stidham deep fake. I was like, are we being trolled right now? Are we seriously doing the Jarrett Stidham thing? I thought it was hilarious. But I think in this game, something to watch for just off of a couple of watches of divisional round for these teams is watch for the Nick Bonito bull rush early in this game, especially if he's lined up against Will Campbell. You want to make him feel like he's not able to get to the point to eliminate getting to pass rush getting to his outside shoulder in pass rush department. Watch for the bull rush early. Watch for the inside moves early. And so it forces Will Campbell to think. And it forces him to always be worried about that inside move that gives up the outside shoulder for the strip sacks that we saw. That's how Will Campbell gave up all the strip sacks in the last couple of weeks. He's so busy being worried about the inside move that he gets beat around the corner. But I also think in this game, how Sean Payton manufactures any offense for a backup quarterback in the game of this magnitude could be the toughest job of his career.
He'll try. I mean, it's going to be, you're going to see every screen in the book. You're going to see a handful of trick plays. And I don't think, 5.5 points is probably fair given the situation, but I don't think this completely eliminates their chances of winning this game. They're at home and they've won a lot of games with that defense. And like you said, this defense matches up really well against this Patriots offensive line. This is with all the havoc they can create up front. They can get those negative plays. Mays fumbled 6 times in 2 games. You can get the ball back from him in this one. So think it's still going to be a good game, but it does take a lot of the sheen off. I do think it's cool, very cool, though, that we almost had 3 guys in the 2024 quarterback class in the championship game in year 2. That quarterback class has just been an absolute home run. Already 3 quarterbacks from it made championship games at this point in time.
It's really cool, and I think it sort of backs up what everybody thought about that class, which is it has potential to be really special. And the fact that they're doing all this so early in their careers, I think it's awesome. And I think it sort of pushes back on a point that's been really weird around the NFL this year. Is like all the quarterbacks are bad. QB development's in the tank. And it's like, no, like these are really good players that we're seeing. We're seeing Drake May potentially win an MVP in his second year in the NFL.
And it's such a high bar thing that not every quarterback class is going to have one. NFL finds it out the hard way every year, but it's not going to be an even distribution of talent. There will be certain influxes. I mean, we've seen it before, 1983, right? Elway, Marino, one of the greatest quarterback drafts of all time, 2004, right? There are years where sometimes it clicks and you just get a bunch of guys all at once. And then there are doldrums where you're like, why are there no good quarterbacks coming out? It is a random thing. But 2024, I hope you drafted one. And if you didn't draft one, or if you did draft one, you're Atlanta or Minnesota, I hope they develop. I'm not going to write them off, either of those guys. They've shown flashes, each of them. So we'll see. All right, let's get to Rams at Seahawks. Seahawks 2.5-point favorites. 47.5 is the over-under here. It felt like it had to happen because the first 2 games were such good games. 21-19, the Rams won the first one. 38-37, the Seahawks won the second one. That was the home team winning in both of those cases. How do we think it goes this time?
This is going to be such a cool game because even in those first 2 games, you had the first one, Sam Darnold completely melts down, 4 interceptions, but it still comes down to a missed kick by the Seahawks kicker to win the game for the Rams. Then the second time, you get the touchdown that or the 2-point conversion that probably shouldn't have been a 2-point conversion. You get a lot of really weird plays. You get Puka going for 200+ yards and the Seahawks win in overtime. So it feels like these teams are so evenly matched that it had to end this way. And it sort of feels like whoever wins this game is going to win the Super Bowl. So it's going to be intense. I'm excited to see how Mike Macdonald and how the Seahawks defend the Rams once again, because they've done a really good job of slowing down the run game out of when the Rams are in 13 personnel, which goes back to how good they are in light boxes. It's going to have to be a monster game from the Rams offensive line for them to move the ball. Getting Kevin Dotson back in this game is huge. He went out of the second game with an ankle injury. I think Derek Hall stepped on. Derek Hall got suspended for 2 games because of it. Getting Kevin Dotson back in this game is going to be huge for Los Angeles.
48 degrees on Sunday in Seattle. Thank God. I did not want to suffer through no rain in the forecast as of yet. I was done with the weather games. We had a good run. They were fun while it lasted. I want to see the best playing the best. Hopefully we'll get that in this one, but can't wait now. All right. That's our show. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. We will be back on Tuesday. Until then, keep pushing.